Today, some great insights from former employees of both Tesla and SpaceX about what it's like working for Elon Musk, how the companies manage to do what they do, run circles around their respective industries. Perfect timing just ahead of the SpaceX IPO and the joint project between SpaceX, XAI and Tesla unveiled recently, known as Terafab, the most absurdly ambitious endeavor ever undertaken by Elon Musk.
SpaceX culture, maybe forgetting the buzzwords. What is the single most important thing that you learned at SpaceX or Tesla that you now apply every single day at your companies?
I think the flat orgs is hypercritical, right? You need information to flow as quickly as possible. You need to democratize access to information, and that's really the purpose of flat organizations. It's not because, like, if you do flat organizations wrong, it can get chaotic, right? Like, the purpose of flat organizations is really about information flow and collaboration, and so any junior engineer should be able to go to any senior member of any executive team at any point in time and talk directly to folks that are making decisions, as well as collaborate with teams that are within the company, kind of without having to funnel information through managers and then back down into.
Well, practically every company on Earth has left the chat. I'm sure most people watching who have a job, my condolences, have found themselves in a situation where they were blocked by layers and layers and layers of management, BS, etc., a structure and a system that prevented them from talking directly to the person that would solve the problem, move the project along, and so on. We've all been there. This was the most important thing, that he's learned working for Elon Musk. Might explain why Musk-led companies are able to get so much done so much quicker than their industry peers.
To their teams. So that's hypercritical and is a big piece of how we've been building the company. I don't know if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think another part of that, maybe a part of making that successful, or at least from my experience, is you need leaders across that flat org that are able to make decisions really quickly. I think decision velocity, without using a buzzword, is very, very important. With high conviction leadership who can make strong decisions, you increase the pace of development, you increase the pace of production cycles, everything goes faster. Even from a flying people to space perspective, there's a lot of risk, right? And by having high conviction leaders who can go make really fast decisions in that space too, it helps absolve a lot of risk from the lower level, more junior engineers. It really just lets them go fast. Like, I think if you have a junior engineer who's just now starting out a SpaceX or a Tesla, and they're like worrying themselves, I'm making this crazy big decision, it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. Like, what if I mess up? If a leader can come in and remove that concern from the junior engineer's mind by just making a decision and saying go, then you go way, way faster.
This is another great insight. Combination of decisiveness, fast decision making, and essentially preventing some of your junior and new employees from stressing and worrying, oh no, what if I make a mistake? What if I make the wrong decision? Because Daddy, the more senior employees, will handle the decision making, the responsibility, and any potential fallout.
You can't wait to have all of the information available to make decisions, right? And oftentimes you won't find out if a decision is correct or not until you've made it, tried it, and then iterated really quickly on, you're not always going to make the right decision, but you're always just trying to maximize your percentage that you did make the right decision.
Another great point. There's probably a few overanalyzers watching this video. Think about this simply. Imagine somebody makes decisions 10 times faster than you. 20% of the time they're wrong, but they find out pretty quick because they've made the decision. They adjust course. They're making 10 times as many decisions as you are. You may make less mistakes. Maybe you're wrong 5% of the time. But who's going to be further ahead if their decision-making rate is 10 times yours, even accounting for the mistakes? That may be a difficult pill to swallow.
It's all bets. It's all making bets.
That's right. But speed and excellence and execution. Like, those are the two things.
I mean, I guess, and you need that information in order to be able to make decisions.
You need to accumulate as much information as you can within the time that you kind of constrain yourself to, and then make the decision and then learn from that decision.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next clip.
So maybe switching gears a little bit, both Tesla and SpaceX are famous for approaching every problem with this kind of factory mindset. Everything is a factory. Everything, you touched on it earlier, Turner, everything kind of boils down to a manufacturing problem. So I want to talk a little bit about what that means in practice. Chandler, maybe starting with you, can we talk about iteration on Starship? So from V1 to V2 to V3, how did you balance system complexity and production rate?
Yeah. Just to give some context, whenever I started in the Starship program, it was around Flight 3 timeframe. So a little bit of V1 play in terms of full stack, and then pushed all the way through the V2 development cycle, and then started to touch V3 and kind of lay that out before I left the company. I think really what this trade for us came down to is and what enabled kind of the speed and thinking with this factory mindset is, and really just production focus in general, is requirements. Like from the design side, if you can boil up all of the requirements that sound stupid as fast as possible, and then give yourself a chance to whack them out of the equation, you now leave
like
yourself.
Like what? Give me an example, if you can.
Yeah, there's one that's kind of interesting. It's kind of getting into the weeds, but we had the opportunity to pull some hardware from Booster. So Booster was a little bit ahead of the ship team in terms of their V3 design. They kind of skipped V2 for Booster. They went from V1 to V3, and they had some hardware designed for the V3 vehicle that actually could have been plugged in the ship very easily. And we had very limited engineers to go design a ton of prop systems hardware. And we identified that, we could maybe use this. And we kind of brought it over early, which would have been an earlier implementation than Booster. And one of the things that popped up that sounds kind of silly is it was essentially a snorkel that lives inside the fuel tank, and you could condense liquid inside that snorkel. And the valves that were effectively venting the tank there don't like liquid. So when we were like trying to go super fast, like, oh, sweet, we got free hardware. We can skip a whole design cycle. Let's go fast. And we can, just jump into production sooner rather than later. We were like, oh, we're going to get liquid in this thing too. I don't know if the valves are going to like that. And what we did is we just spooled up the necessary resources to go prove that that's going to be okay. And what that did was not only allow us to go roll in this whole hardware design into production sooner, but it also enabled Booster once they got there to go use the same hardware. Mm-hmm. So from a company goal perspective, it was fantastic. And it was like the perfect direction. I think I won't take credit for all of that ideation. Actually, another guy on the team is still there, kind of brought it to my plate, and I'm like, oh man, that's freaking great. Let's do it. Let's go fast. But that's one thing, and it's really just, staying super clear on this intention to question every requirement, because what that does is it enables your requirements set whenever an engineer steps in to go actually design the hardware to be enabled to design a very simple solution. And simple is fast, simple is cheap. So really, I think that whole part of the SpaceX mantra is very real, and it is happening across Starship. It's even happening on fixes on Dragon and Falcon.
Like if you hadn't been focused, if you hadn't been thinking of 2 steps ahead about production, you would have just designed something from scratch that was perfectly bespoke to the set of requirements.
Exactly. It's like exactly. Bespoke requirements. And I think, we literally had a whole design for all this hardware before realizing, oh crap, we should just go use that. Because then we can go start figuring out how to build these, somewhat complex weldments sooner rather than later, and then build the production of those very quickly.
As we've heard from Musk many times, it's the machine that builds the machine that really matters. You need to be engineering your products for mass production, high volume, low cost, rapid production. As we also heard, it's really all about simplicity. And on that note, just a reminder that complexity appeals to stupid people. The kind of person that hears a company, let's just call them Company A, bragging about having autonomous vehicles with 420,000 different sensors. And their first and possibly only thought is, wow, there's so many sensors. That must mean it's better because it's complicated, and complicated's better. And I can't not bring this up on screen now. The Ford Mustang Mach-E. This actually happened. These absolute fucking retards designed a touchscreen for their vehicle, which looks like it's operating on 2008 era software. Pretty ugly, but whatever. The touchscreen has a fucking physical dial embedded in it. They really did this. It's a touchscreen. Software can enable the same functionality without the extra expense and complexity and failure points. Who did this? The answer is a fucking idiot. Here's how this happened. Someone at Ford, consumers really, it's very inconvenient to have to press a touchscreen to change the volume on your thing. Why don't we just put a knob in it? Everyone's used to using a knob. Resisting the urge to make an inappropriate joke about knobs. Yeah, great idea, good idea. Yeah, we're so smart, and it's a great point of difference too. It's not going to be hard to manufacture or cause failure points, or who cares about complete? Yeah, that's fine, whatever. It's not like we're competing against Tesla's Model Y with his vehicle anyway, right? Oh, but they are competing against the Model Y, which, just for context, Ford's Mach-E sold a whopping 4,600 units in the first quarter of this year in the United States, which is down 60% year over year. Meanwhile, Tesla's Model Y is still the world's best-selling vehicle by revenue for 3 years running. Check out the full podcast with the link below. Just wanted to share a few key highlights specifically around how Tesla, SpaceX, which inevitably, as I've said, will eventually become one company, are able to get things done so much faster than any other company on Earth. This will be especially relevant as the massive Terafab joint project between Tesla, SpaceX, and xAI begins to ramp up. Watch this space. Want more content? Early access? bunch of perks, click the links in the pinned comment. AG1 has been part of my daily health protocol for almost half a decade. It's packed full of vitamins and minerals and helps me fill in nutritional gaps while supporting energy, digestion, and immune function. It also has prebiotics and probiotics to promote gut health. I take my health very seriously, and so should you. Try AG1 today by visiting drinkag1.com/SMR or click the link in the pinned comment and enjoy a free welcome kit with vitamin D3 plus K2 and AG1 travel packs. That's drinkag1.com/SMR.